Greetings to everybody. This is, let me show you a very interesting book. I was introduced to this book whilst listening to a talk on Britain's history. And this book was mentioned to the speaker, who then bought it, and a much tattered version, much tattier than mine. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is rather interesting, because I have professed, as have others, that the history of Wales and the history of ancient Britain has all but completely been wiped out. By the year 1922, in Wales, it stated that the teachers were replaced by English teachers, and the history of Wales, as it was previously taught, was removed. Now, this book is prior. This is from 1908. I have to check the dates, because maybe this is a later reprinting, but I could not find the dates on this particular one, but I did find out it was 3 and 6 if you were to buy it. Now, this is a school book for school kids, and it was part of the curriculum. If we have a look at it, complete histories of England and Wales, covering the requirements in history of each class according to the latest demands of the Board of Education. And there are other books there that the kids are supposed to read. And down here, the Educational Publishing Company of Cardiff are the publishers. And my goodness, the kids were pretty well educated in those days, because this is not easy reading for anybody, to be totally honest with you. To be honest with you, what I will say is chapter 10 is why I come here. This chapter is about King Arthur. This would be King Arthur II, who lived in AD 500 in that era. And let's have a read of it, because it's very interesting. Here is a recreation in the 1900s of the predecessor to King Arthur, a guy called King Idon, and they get together and they explain how the battles went against the Saxons. Yes, the invading Saxons with lots of invadingness. Okay, good. Let's have a look. I will read you a bit, because it's very, very interesting. You have here, I'll go over it briefly. King Idon, who ruled that district in Gwent, he pulled together an army to pursue the Saxons, and he won. He basically won. Now, at last, on the death of the king, which was King Idon, the chiefs of Britain, because Britain was Wales and a large area of East Britain, all the way up the top and down, and also to the south there were areas which were all, Britain was, well, it was that area for now. Anyway, there's so much to learn here. Now, the chiefs of Britain came together to do Britius, who was the Archbishop of Caerleon. Caerleon was the huge castle and a complex which was the seat of all the great kings of Wales and the kings of Britain, because the Britons were they were the Welsh, they were the original Britons. And the Archbishop proposed that he would crown King Arthur as king to lead them in their fight for Britain's freedom. Arthur was then a youth of only 15 years, noble, courageous and generous, that he was beloved by all. Dubritius therefore placed the crown on Arthur's head, and such a multitude of knights flocked to do him honour that he was unable to entertain them all. At Caerleon, this big castle complex, he established his renowned order of the Knights of the Round Table. He talks about the knights and the oath that they gave, and it's very interesting, actually. These noble young men vowed with a solemn oath, this is unto Arthur, to reverence the king as if he were their conscience, and their conscience as their king, to break the heathen and uphold the Christ. They were Christians. They had an ethical viewpoint of things. To ride abroad, redressing human wrongs, and they did. To speak no slander, nor listen to it, to honour his own word as if it's his God's. So these guys got together under Arthur. He was a renowned leader. Now, let's have a look at this little chapter here. And this is interesting, because this is over 100 years ago. And the writers in this school book explain something here. The exaggerated tales with which Geoffrey of Monmouth related the hero king. Now, Geoffrey Monmouth was a writer who although he wrote correct things, they were very mixed up in terms of the dates, and a lot of poems and some rather wild ideas were all mixed in. Despite the fact that he was basically correct, he mixed up the dates. There was some other fanciful things put in. So the exaggerated tales with Geoffrey of Monmouth related of the hero king have cast an air of fable over his real exploits. In the centuries that have passed since Geoffrey wrote his book, writers of many nations have woven so much mystery into the wonderful stories he related that it is now very difficult to separate Arthur from the legends that have grown up around his name. They are not, however, without foundation, and we must endeavour to remove the romance which has sprung up around the reality in the story of the hero king, King Arthur, as it has been handed down to us. Isn't that fascinating? Even in 1908, they were saying, let's not mix up fantasy with the real story of King Arthur.